Recording in progress.
You're listening to the MLS Fantasy Insider, bringing you weekly tips, tricks, and advice for the official MLS fantasy game.
Hello, everyone. Sorry for a moment as I forgot to mute my my chat stream right here. AFC Richmond, Ashley, is that what's going on?
That's right.
AFC Richmond, there it is, right there. Well, hello, everyone. Go ahead. Welcome to the live stream. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. I am back in the MLS Fantasy Boss broadcast studio headquarters. My geek retreat, as you can tell. So thanks for everyone putting up with the technical difficulties that Blayne and I had last week. To be fair, all on my end. But we are back this week with the usual crew, ready to talk about another double game week. So the social media is out on both Discord and Twitter. So if you could, please feel free to go and share that. It helps so much. And also, always feel free to give a like to the show. It does help with those metrics. For whatever they are, I don't keep up with them super close, but that's just what people on YouTube say. So slap that like button, yo. I don't know. That's what. I added yo because I was driving on the interstate recently this past weekend, and I had Waze, and I got caught in some traffic, and I looked down there at the comment, and I wish people would comment more. And I clicked on it, and it said, "Them cars went boom, yo," and it's just been in my head. And so whenever I say some things, every now and then I just go yo at the end.
Oh, it's gonna be in mine now too. Oh.
I loved it. Well, thank you so much, everyone. We're going to be talking round 25, so I think we are ready.
Yeah.
So we'll do. This is the behind the scenes stuff that everyone who comes on YouTube gets to see. But we'll do the little intro right now for the podcast. Hello and welcome to episode 29 of the MLS Fantasy Insider, our preview of round 25. This episode is brought to you by Defender Captains, aka should have played the Powerball. Actually brought to you by the amazing Patreon supporters of MLS Fantasy Insider and MLSFantasyBoss.com. I'm your host, Reid Connolly from MLS Fantasy Boss, and tonight I'm joined by our usual co-hosts, my partners in fantasy, Mr. Blayne Riffle and Ashley Savage. How are you all doing tonight?
I'm good. I'm exhausted, but I'm here.
Yeah, I'm great. I'm happy to be back, although I really enjoyed our vacation. So.
Hey, I'm happy to have you all back. And for those of you listening, sorry for the technical difficulties that we experienced last episode. I'll own up, all on my end, not Blayne. Don't blame any of that on Blayne. But I am back, or Ashley. She wasn't even here. She couldn't participate in any of that. But I'm back in the regular recording studio, so the quality and the bandwidth and everything should be much better, though I have not gotten my fiber internet yet. So maybe the last couple episodes of the year will have a pretty sweet stream bitrate as well, but we'll see. We're back here. So yes, thanks for putting up with that. It was definitely weird, but I think we did get something out for the second half of round 24, which was crazy. Did you guys enjoy a 2-week fantasy round?
No, because it was really like 1 week spread out over 2 weeks because there weren't that many doubles, right? And I feel like the first half of the doubles, which we talked about as a whole group, were kind of meh. And then the real weekend was good. But I hate those kind of mini weeks, and I hate when they split fantasy up like that. I get it. I'd rather have 2 weeks as a round than one really tiny round where you can only have 6 teams on your team, but I don't know, just it was a little lacking.
I feel like it wouldn't have been that bad if we had gotten to play this round. I mean, I guess there wasn't quite enough teams, but yeah. I don't know. We had a pretty good pot of players, I think, to pick from.
Yeah, I think so too. And the international call-ups make it tricky, and so I always understand when they split these fantasy rounds up like this, but I don't like it.
I enjoyed it. It was a fun dynamic, but when your highlights are in the first game and everything's kind of downhill from there, it gets really tough.
That's not good. You have 2 whole weeks to feel bad about it.
Yeah, right. It prolonged the suffering there.
Sure.
It
Yep.
does. It does. Well, I had a 1-year-old's birthday in between all of that, so
Yeah, you did.
it was all good. Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
You all may have seen the pictures of cake being lifted overhead into face, into hair. It was amazing. Smash, smash.
You had a good color scheme on that cake.
And thank you. It was he destroyed Alderaan. That's what that was.
Good.
But enough of that. We're here to talk about recapping round 24, however long it was, before we get into round 25, which is another double game week. And I'm going to get this out early just in case you drop or stop listening or something crazy happens. It starts Wednesday. So you need to be thinking about your teams and getting things set. And this is not one of those nice weeks where you have people who you can just wait until the weekend. You got to get your team pretty much set by Wednesday. So let's talk about how everyone did in round 24. Blayne.
Yeah, finished on a 79. Not happy with that, really. Started off strong with the first weekend. Cornell, Nealis, and Gutman. I mean, triple up on Red Bull's defense and really hit right away. And then everything else was just kind of downhill from there. Bunch of 5s and 6s. Missed with the Spria. I thought he would do more with Portland there. I just had that feeling, and it ended up being Blanco got one weird goal on that one. Reynoso as a captain, also not the greatest. Just overall, not the best week to have. Just fell a little bit behind the pack, I think, for this one, and nothing special. Except the Red Bulls defense kind of saved me with the opening shot, and I tripled up. And I don't know. I know some people did, but I don't think it was quite the big thing to triple up there. And I thought it was worth it. Best clean sheet chance and get it out of the way early.
Ashley, what about you?
Yeah, I did okay. Like I said, I was on vacation, so I didn't check lineups, and I got an 89. Let's just throw that out there, which is not embarrassing by any means. But I didn't check lineups, and I'd decided to go with Tolkien over Gutman, and I didn't realize he wasn't starting, so I feel like I kind of, lost a couple points, not a ton, but a couple points on myself there. Jimmy Medranda got a goal, which really saved any Seattle defense pick that I had because I went with Medranda over anybody else. So that worked out with 9. But, like a lot of people, Reynoso and Heel were kind of busts. I captained Joao Paulo, who got 18, which was fine. And then I did feel the need to rub into Blayne's face that Brian White hit both games because he told me he wouldn't, and I said he would. Now, my version of hit isn't really hit. He got an 8 and a 9, but the comment was, could he keep getting on the scoreboard? And Blayne said no, and I said yes, and he did. So please don't feel like I am endorsing Brian White in any particular way. I was just happy to be right for once because Blayne's usually not
right.
And I've
Save
never
it.
backed a Vancouver striker in a hit or miss with you guys, so that was a first for me. But yeah, generally fine. If I wasn't in the happiest place on earth, I would have paid a little bit better attention to lineups. But since I didn't, I feel pretty content with what I got.
Did I defend that one with you about he had been fairly consistent? Okay, there we go. Yes, go us.
Yeah.
And my thing, in my defense, I said he wasn't going to get on the score sheet twice in one game, and he ended up getting 2 assists in the second game. So
he barely proved you wrong, Blayne. I mean, he was really trying.
I mean, that's 6 points compared to a 5-point single goal. So 2 assists is not really what you're looking for.
However, we have a news term for this, Blayne. We did this last week.
Yes, I forgot. Scoring action.
Yes, 2 scoring actions.
Ooh, I like that.
That's right. We're not always just looking for 2 goals. Goals and assists also work, but I would say the double assist definitely lower on the totem pole of what you're hoping for from a forward.
Yeah. I just kept him in just to prove a point. I wasn't even really.
Yeah, I think for the scoring action thing, it's ambiguous for a forward, and it's kind of a forward-only term.
Yeah.
Because you're looking for 2 of those instead of multiple goals. Because you're taking somebody like Heel looking for 2 or 3 assists. You're not looking for 2 scoring actions. You're kind of assist hunting there because that's what he does most.
Yeah, I liked what Kingdom FC said in chat, attacking returns. I think that's a good holistic view of it. When we say scoring actions, we're really thinking about 2 goals or assists, those 2 things, because if you missed the discussion last week, which you easily could have, the the conversation was conventional wisdom says, oh, if you pick a forward for a double game week, you want to hope to have a guy who's going to score twice in a game and get a brace, because then that's what's really worth it. Otherwise, you're going to get one goal in each game, and what's the good of that? And we broadened that to, based on some other conversations from Discord, said, well, it's really 2 scoring actions, because if you got a goal and an assist in one game, that's also still great from a forwards who don't always get those points beyond shots and goals. But I think what Kingdom, a good point, saying attacking returns, totally snagging that from FPL. Yeah, attacking returns, that's that nice holistic of goals, assist, shots, bonus points with any kind of passing they may do. So I think that's a nice holistic term to look for. That's the kind of attacking return you're looking for on a well-rounded forward, I think, on lots of single game weeks, a good attacking return. So yeah, no, we'll throw those into the... We'll take that from the FPL lexicon, put it into our own MLS, and make it our own.
Yeah.
As for myself, I was right there with Ashley with an 89. A little sigh right there. Solid. I mean, it was fine. My players mostly hit. Had a couple of duds with 4s on my defense, but in general, I had decent scores. I got the Gutman clean sheet. I got the Coronel clean sheet, so I was able to just do that early. Kibaroo. Scrub that out with the Dallas players, no problem. I added in Fontas late because here's the reason I had to sigh. My actual note in the script says 89, could have been a 90 because I made a Fontas substitution, and so I did not get Acosta's 5 off my bench, but I got Fontas's 4, so I went down by 1 point there. But it should have been more like a 97 because I ended up being like, you know what, it's the end of the season. I'm not going to hit some of the targets I was trying to set for myself. I'll kind of go with some homer stuff. Who knows what's going to happen? And I went with Brenner as well on the bench, who got a 2. I should have gone with Will Bruin. Everything in me said I should have. I know.
I thought you would. We talked
I don't know.
about it.
I know we did. I had Will Bruin, and I was like, let's go with Cincinnati. Why not? That's fun. I haven't picked. I should have gone with Will Bruin, so it should have been like a 97. Which even if I had gotten a 97, I still would have fallen short up against my head-to-head against Patrick, who got a 99. Congrats there, man. And I'm now 0-2 in the MLS Fantasy Hosts Insider Experts League against Patrick in our derbies, which I think needs a better name than the Reid versus Patrick derby. So if you all have suggestions for what my derby should be with Patrick, then I'm open to hearing what those are. But that was really fun, and Patrick well earned those, though the first one is a bit subjective, I think, based on Opta and Skylar. However, that's fine. Should have been a draw. Not bitter. Looking at chat, I see a lot of people in the same general area. We got some mid to high 80s, some low to mid 90s. That seems where a lot of people hit this round. So I think for this really weird 2-week round, double game week, call up, rotation, hashtag classic because MLS week that we had, that's where a lot of people hit. So if you hit that area, you should be feeling pretty good about yourself because that's a solid score, definitely, for round 24. Going into round 25 seems a bit more prosperous for a fantasy manager from their point of view for points because it's a double game week. Again, a lot of solid matchups. People are back. Cards and cautions are going to be kind of weird. We'll get to that later, but let's just talk about some takeaways we had from round 24 that are going to play into thinking into round 25. Ashley.
Yeah. Red Bull picked up 6 points, but they only scored 2 goals. And so, we kind of talked in the part 1 of last round episode that none of us were very hot on any Red Bull attack. And I think that kind of continues for me. The midfield's unpredictable. Fabio, Klamala, you never really know. I still think that they have a pretty decent defense, especially for how a lot of their defenders get offensive bonus points. But to just get a 1-0 and a 1-0 for me, again, Red Bull, was just kind of interesting. DC and Nashville put in some solid defensive performances. I feel like both those defenses have been defenses we've paid attention to for sure recently and across the whole year for fantasy. So for Nashville to go into DC and they both come out goalless, I thought was kind of interesting. Definitely some rotated lineups, but still. And then where did Minnesota go? I know we'll talk about it a little bit more when we talk about midfielders. We debate the Reynoso Fragapane or just talk about it. But I didn't get to watch because, like I said, I was on vacation. But the points reflective, the scores reflective for me were very surprising in both games. So not too sure what's going on there. I'm sure we have plenty of our pals who can fill us in there, Christian and a couple of other guys. And then it's not a hot take. I feel like I'm actually coming in late with this, but is New England cooling off a little bit? I mean, Bo got an 8 and Heel got a 7, respectable, but just not what I was expecting from them at home against Chicago. Both in just MLS play, which is reflective of fantasy and definitely in fantasy. Turner letting in 2 was really surprising to me. So I'm not sure if, they clinched the earliest that's ever existed or whatever it is, if they're maybe not taking the foot off the gas, but not going in as hard. It's just something I'm paying attention to because I don't ever want to not have Carlos Heel, but I'm starting to wonder if that version of Carlos Heel might not pay out through the rest of fantasy. I still don't want to play. I don't want to play him in real life. I don't want my team to play him. But I don't know if I want to play him as a pick in fantasy. So definitely something I'm paying attention to. And then because I feel obligated to say it, and I know so many people want to hear me talk about the Sounders as they always do. Injuries really catching up to them right now with call-ups too. I think it will be better this week. I think you'll see more people back. There are hard rumors that you're going to see Jordan Morris take the field in this double game week at some point. We'll see. I'll believe that when I see it. Reid Diaz should be back in some aspect, but call-ups and injuries are definitely affecting the Sounders, and it's affecting the people you would want to choose. I don't want that defense right now, which includes Stephen Fry. So with more people back and with the call-ups, people returning, I think you'll see a more well-rounded Sounders team this next round.
Blayne.
Yeah, and Ashley said we'll talk about it later, but I want to talk about it now.
Okay.
No, the takeaway, I mean, it's 2 points I had earlier in the year, and I kind of flip-flopped with RSL. But right now, Krylock's better than Rusnak as our options. Just keep that in mind. Mm-hmm. It flipped. Krylock really started the season hot because Rusnak was almost non-existent. And then Rusnak came out of nowhere and started torching everybody, and now it's kind of flipped back a little bit. I think they're more into a duo where one's going to score better 1 week, and then the next week it's going to flip-flop again. But right now, Krylock's had such a strong run of form. I think he's your option, and if you're looking at single game weeks, that isn't a bad one to shout out. And then I went with the wrong one this week. I said I captained Ray. I've been on the Fragapane train ever since he came in, once we saw them both get to play together. I love Ray as a fantasy player. He is good. But we go back to we're looking for the scoring actions. And for every one Ray gets, Fraga's looking like he's getting 1.5. Mm-hmm. Or if Ray's getting the assist, it's Fraga getting the goal. Like, it just, for whatever reason, the way this dynamic is working, Ray's coming in second fiddle once you get to picking one of these guys. I've seen it majority of the time when I'm looking at him, Ray's got the lower score when they both start. I don't know why that is. It's just, I'm throwing it out there as a reminder because they've got a double home game this week. It happened this week. I think it could happen again in the coming week. It's just Fragapane gets the better scoring chances, the better scores once we're looking at taking a Minnesota midfielder when they're both playing. It's just what I've seen all season long. Got a kind of a question mark in the back of my head, and I think it's a little bit of both, but is Nashville's defense getting even better as we go on through the season, or did DCU just completely fall apart in the attack?
Both?
Yeah, I think
both. In that particular game, both, but...
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both, but Nashville's defense seems to be playing really, really well, especially on the road. And DC's just a little bit too streaky for my liking. I know Kamara had a great run of form there for a few weeks. but that whole attack just seems a little too streaky for my liking at times, especially when we've got some other players there. And then a happy note for a lot of people is Philly seems to be finding their goal scoring form again. 2 goals in each of the games this week. Shabilko only got 1 of those, so it's a little bit hit and miss on where those goals are coming from, but Philly has found that goal scoring form, and that's something that was severely lacking early in the season. We only looked at them for defense, and now that they're finding some goals, maybe we can start looking at the offense there and have a little bit more to choose from, although it may be hard to predict, but I think if you kind of watch these teams, you'll get an idea of who's going to have a good showing depending on the matchup they're in.
As for myself, just a few. You guys covered a lot of the big ones. I really want to bet. Well, let me start out first by saying one of the big takeaways is we're starting to see the playoff picture solidify for who is in and who is out. And so you'll want to check that listing at MLSsoccer.com to see who is and who isn't. If you're listening tonight, I'll go ahead and do that for you. The teams who have been knocked out, who've been eliminated from the playoffs in the East are Chicago, Toronto, and my FC Cincinnati. And then over in the West, it's Houston and Austin. I say this because perhaps that's going to be impacting how these teams play, who they're rotating, and you'll want to pay attention to those lineups to see if those are people you're going to want to bet against or bet for, depending on what kind of switcheroos you may have set up. I say that because I want to bet against Austin so much because they've been eliminated, they've been struggling, not as much as Cincinnati, but they have been struggling, clean sheets and all around. But this week they're playing Houston and San Jose, which are not teams I want to bet for. So I really want to bet against Austin, but I don't really want to bet on the team that they're playing this round. But in general, I'm looking at Austin as, again, one of the other teams I'm kind of betting against, as well as some of these teams that are going to be eliminated. Our teams are going to be looking at to see how they're going to be lining up for what kind of advantage I may be able to find fantasy-wise in these closing rounds. After that, Ashley, Blayne, are the Crew pulling a Seattle with a late run of form after this crazy year that they've had?
I mean, it looks like it, doesn't it? You know, they've had injuries and call-ups, so many injuries, honestly, this year for them. Yeah, maybe? I think so.
Maybe. I know. That's something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I definitely agree, both from I mean, if there's anyone in our midst who's a Columbus Crew expert, it's Jesse Zardes' #1 fan, Blayne. So
yes, of course.
I'm speaking first. But, yes, from everything that I'm seeing, I think that they are going under the radar, and I think that they have a really strong team. And they were just so poor at one point as defending champions that I think, kind of forgot about them. And they are quietly making a case for themselves in form and in fantasy, I think.
Yeah, and they got the clean sheet this week. It was against Miami, so there is a bit of a grain of salt that I guess we can't take with that. But if there's a game that's going to help kickstart your confidence, that is a nice one to have. Seeing good performances from Jossie Zardes, seeing good performances from Pedro Santos, which is sort of a back and forth sometimes between he and Zelarayan. So definitely, I think, a team to keep an eye on after this week is the takeaway. And then finally, I do believe that Colorado dropping 3 goals on Minnesota seems more like a blip in form to me, and I still like Minnesota as a defensive option going forward. That's a bit of a little blip. So I'm not looking too much into that. I still have some confidence, especially since they did a shutout in their second game against Austin. So I still do like them for that. All right, checking chat real quick. We see a comment here. Strongly agree that the playoff situation is important, and this is in the coming weeks. Teams pushing to get in, teams giving up. Yes, I didn't mention that. Teams pushing to get in, that could also be important, especially looking at like New England for the Shield race and things like that. So that is, I always, if you want to see some of this stuff, I like to head over to 538. And they have a nice little chart for predictions of making the playoffs, bye rounds, supporter shields, and right now it's pretty much locked up with New England. They're 98% for a supporter shield, but there's a slight chance Seattle could get it, and an even slighter chance that Sporting Kansas City could get it. A lot needs to happen. I think even according to 538, technically Cincinnati is the only team eliminated from making the playoffs. That, I mean, if Austin were to win all of its games and other teams, but they're less than 1%, so essentially eliminated. But yeah, I like to head over to 538 to see some of those percentages. It's pretty fun. All right, well then let's move on to our next segment, housekeeping for round 25. All right, it's time for housekeeping for round 25, as usual, starting with the leaders in the MLS Fantasy Boss network of leagues. Leading the MLS Fantasy Boss and the Reddit League, the final season for the Reddit League, we have Nawajawa. Over at the Discord League, have Feeling Kinda Rad. And then over at the Patreon Open League, this is Garth Butchers. And then moving on to the head-to-head leagues, single winners or single leaders in each of the leagues for maybe the first time in the season. That's how competitive some of these head-to-heads are. I love it. I love it so much. Discord, again, we have Garth Butchers with a record of 22-0-2. That's the best record in any of the leagues that I'm managing this season. Over at the Patreon, we have Sombrero FC with a record of 18-1-5. And drum roll right here, a little bit of a tease on Twitter. Matt Pollard is currently leading the MLS Fantasy Insider Host Invitational, no longer tied with Skylar, with a record of 18-0-6. And yes, Ryan, a quick question from chat. All of my leagues do have a playoff for the head-to-head leagues. So starting now, the top 8, I believe, we'll start playing each other, narrowing it down into this final round. So be sure to check who you're playing in your head-to-head, because it's going to start getting smaller and smaller, and I will be looking at awarding the prizes based upon how that works for those leagues that do qualify for prizes. And if you do want to be eligible for a prize, please, you have few weeks left, but you must sign up onto my registration document. You can access that easily over at MLSFantasyBoss.com. Click on our little Leagues tab, drop down at the top of the screen. If you're not registered, I can't contact you, and if I have to spend so much time trying to contact you, I'm just going to move on to the next person. That's just part of the deal to get a prize. So yeah, congrats to everyone who's leading right now. Only a few rounds left. Let's see if you can do it. As for the actual round 25, everything starts, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, on Wednesday, October 20th. That is just around the corner at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, with a whole bunch of teams. And I'm not kidding, guys. This round, it's easier for me to tell you who is not on a double game week than who is on a double game week, because there are only 4 teams not on a double game week this week, and a whole bunch of them are starting at 7:30. So just check out the lineup there over at MLS Soccer's fantasy site to check that out. But the teams who are not on a double game week are Atlanta, Sporting Kansas City, Real Salt Lake, and New York Red Bulls. Everybody else is on a double game week. The teams with a double home game week are Miami, Minnesota, Orlando, Colorado, and San Jose. And then the teams with a double away game are New England, Montreal, and LAFC. Did I miss anything? I think I got them all. I'll try to double check that a few times. So yeah, those are the teams you're going to look at. Nobody is on a bye, so everyone is in play this week. But if you're looking for switcheroo options from a single game week player, Real Salt Lake has the latest single game of the round on Sunday. So they're going to be your best bet if you need to make some switcheroos or scrub out some players. So look to Real Salt Lake as your option. You have other ones, of course, as well. I think the Red Bulls play before RSL, but RSL is going to give you the most time that you can have if you're looking at trying to preview 2 scores from some people. After that, as usual, we talk about injury news here, but as we've mentioned some before the show started, not everything's been updated from MLS's side. I'll let Blayne get into that in a second, but of course head over to the Discord chat to see all of the updates from everyone who helps participate in the big injury document that we have. You can get to that easily at mlsfantasyboss.com/discord. Blayne.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw it to the Discord crew. I have not had a chance today to dig through any of that, so head over to Discord, find the pinned post for the mega reference that'll have everything updated before game time, and check it out there because I haven't seen it. I don't remember any major red cards this weekend, but I didn't get to watch as much this weekend either.
All right, so yeah, as usual, just head over. Tyler Ranchinator, Christian, Xword, Crossword, however you want to say it, puts all that together. Those are the two of the biggest contributors to it, but lots of people help out a lot. So yeah, head over there. It's in the pinned document, which once you become a member of Discord, which is free, you can access that easily by going into the main chat, the MLS chat, and in the top corner near your search bar, there's a little icon that looks like a thumbtack, a little pin. And if you click on that, it'll show you the important messages that are pinned. Usually that is our Discord poll, which is what we use to have our player rankings each week, which we compare to Skylar's, see how that's going. You can also see some of Blayne's pictures of his beers that he drinks in his MLS Fantasy Insider glass. But that's where you can find the pins. That's where double game week teams will get posted. That's where injury news will get posted. A lot of it's over there. And it's good stuff. Check it out. I can't stress enough the Discord community. Getting close to 900 members, so it's a fantastic resource and just a fun place to meet some friends who like to play fantasy and do other geeky stuff as well. All right, Ashley, anything you want to add as far as call-ups go? Or not call-ups, injuries or anything like that?
No?
That's fair.
Yeah.
All right, well then let's head over to our third segment of the show, our player targets for round 25. So you know, Ashley, your picture has frozen, and it
That's
looks
what Spencer said.
kind of creepy.
I don't know what to do about it, so.
Maybe the internet will catch up with you in a second.
I don't even know.
We'll see if the chat sees it. Oh, there you go. You're back.
Am I?
All right.
Okay.
Yep, you're back.
Woo.
All right, let's talk about player targets for round 25, starting out with some of the games that we are most looking forward to. Ashley.
I mean, there's a couple. I'm not even gonna say it because I don't want to take the Cincy away, but I've gotten into some of these Cincy games this week. I am interested in anyone who is playing Miami. Anytime Inter Miami takes the field, I'm excited to pick someone from the other team. Toronto makes me apprehensive, so I don't know if I'll really go there. But they're on a double. I'm just kind of interested to see how both of those games work. I'm excited for LA to go to Houston. I think that could be a very interesting game, both for the West, but also just for points. And on the same token, I'm excited for LAFC to go to Dallas for the same reasons. Things are really tight in the West, and we briefly touched on this earlier, but I could see a lot of teams really starting to make a push for those playoff spots, especially teams like the LA teams, Dallas, who are more often than not involved in playoffs, but have kind of had some close seasons. And then I'm also really looking forward to both of Nashville's games. I'm excited to see Columbus come to them and then be at home. And then I'm excited to see Nashville go to Philly. I think there's a lot of fantasy implications in both of those games. I won't talk about the Sounders games because I know that's when I become insufferable, but I am also obviously excited for those.
Blayne.
Yeah, a little bit different list for me. I like both of the Houston games myself. I like the way they line up against the Galaxy at home. That's a Galaxy defense that's getting better, but I still don't trust it in the speed that Houston has. Could really exploit that one, and they've been hot lately, so that makes me really excited. And then you go with Houston on the road to Austin, and who knows what's going to happen in Texas, but I don't know. Reid was talking about it. Do you bet against Austin? And I like Houston well enough that I'd probably bet against Austin and take some of those Houston guys there. They seem to have some names starting to come back in and starting to do more. And so I think there's points to be had in both of those games. Definitely targeting Houston on those. I like the Minnesota LAFC game a lot. I think there's potential for a lot of points there, potentially both ways. But LAFC is a team I've targeted against for goals a little bit, and I think the way Minnesota's playing, I think that's one that they could really exploit and run up a score. And so I'm cautiously optimistic that that's going to be one of the highlights for the weekend. And then I also like Columbus and Red Bulls. Red Bulls are a team that has been solid. I think they got 2-1-0 wins. I mean, they're getting the clean sheets going now, but I think Columbus is built to exploit that at home. There's been a little bit of rotation with the Red Bulls. They've been playing quite a bit lately. I don't know what to expect from them all the time, and I kind of think Columbus is turning it around a little bit. So I think that's kind of matchup dependent, but I think there's a lot of potential for points there, especially if Columbus's defense doesn't hold up. And Red Bulls have been finding ways to get that one lone goal lately, so there's a lot of potential here. So I just want to kind of see what happens in that game.
Yes, for myself, I'm looking forward to those Montreal games. I think they have they're one of those bubble teams, and I think they have a lot to play for, and we could see some good results from them. They're on the road, which I never like, but on the road against Orlando and then on the road against Toronto, I think have some decent matchups for them, especially since that's a big derby for them in that second game. After that, I'm looking forward to the Seattle game. I think that's I'll say a little bit about it. Ashley, I like that Colorado matchup, even though it's on the road. You had some success earlier this season with that match, and I think that could be good. They also factor into some of the fantasy maneuvering I'm considering, so I'm definitely interested in that. And then, yeah, like you guys, I'm also interested in a Nashville game. I'm actually interested in those Houston games, but more from a differential point of view because they are out, and I don't know what's going to happen. But yeah, Nashville, both on the road, which is always a concern, but they've been doing well. They've had some success on the road. I think Mukhtar was doing better on the road than at home at one point. Is that still the thing? I don't know. I didn't check that before we started, but they've had some success. Well, let's move on to keepers, defenders, and clean sheets. ? Blayne, what do you got?
Yeah, I don't know that I like the clean sheets this week again. I mean, maybe Colorado. That first game against the Sounders has me interested in a clean sheet. There's a lot of rotation for the Sounders. Colorado's defense is playing really well. Seattle going to play at altitude, depending on who they take, who they start. Rui's been hurt. Joao Paulo's been rotated some. It really depends on that lineup, and so. But I'm liking that. It's probably one of the stronger clean sheet shouts. Maybe Nashville, Philly, both of them played a little defensive on the back end in that second game. But I'm just not seeing a ton of clean sheets again. That's probably my strongest one. So that's why I've got Yarborough in there as my goalkeeper right now. Not sold on that at all. Really, the second game is so late. There's not a good switch to make if you want to go somewhere else either. So it's kind of a set it and forget it type of thing. Other name that's shown up just because of some of the streaky performances that are coming against them is Matt Turner. I'm kind of waffling on that. I may throw Turner on the bench to start with and try to watch as much of the DC New England game as I can. If DC doesn't look like they're pressing at all, I may just leave Turner in there and hope for that clean sheet if he's held it, because you got about an hour and a half gap between the kickoffs of Turner and Yarborough, so I could see roughly 60 minutes maybe once you get halftime in there, maybe a little more than that, and get a feel for it. And I don't mind the second Turner game. It's on the road to Orlando, but Orlando's so streaky anyway. I think you're kind of picking your best option at two games and hope for something good to happen here. I don't see a lot of luck trying to game the system and get an early Saturday game and then switch to one of the single game week teams. I just don't like those single game week teams enough on the back end. They're all on the road. So looking at those guys, and then defenders, Wagner when he's playing, a lot of bonus points, a lot of set piece opportunity. Zimmerman's getting on some set pieces, getting a lot of bonus points, taking 2 bites at the apple on those two guys. And then maybe a little bit of an odd name, a guy I've liked. I like the matchups here. I think there's a potential for some offensive potential, and that's going back to Bravo with Portland. Colorado's another one of those. It's not scoring goals as consistently. They don't have the names that you're looking at. And so maybe they can pick up a clean sheet at Colorado, but I could see him really getting involved in the attack against Vancouver too. A little bit of a differential pick, but I think he could pay off really big because he does get forward a lot more than some of the other wing backs. And he's been pretty good at doing it so far and picking up those bonus points. So definitely playing the bonus point game and trying it out with a few different names this week.
As for myself, I'm not really banking on clean sheets. I don't like a lot of the clean sheet chances because of some rotations, because of playoffs, both rotating for freshness and rotating because you can at this point. So a lot of question marks. Some of the maneuvering I'm going over in my head, seeing a lot of talk about Willis and Turner in chat. I may have misspoke a little bit earlier. I think I said Nashville had 2 away games, but they're split home and away. New England has 2 away games. New England plays at 7:30 on Wednesday, and then they play the last game at 7:30 on Sunday. So if you're going to go with Matt Turner, you may just put him in as your only keeper and just roll with it and hope, based on some of the quality of New England, that you get lucky against Orlando or against DC, which both teams have potentials to score. I mean, Ola Kamara, DK, lots of options there that can happen. So I worry about that, and I'm not huge on New England because of that. I think you have some better options. The Nashville with Willis is something else that I'm potentially looking at. Columbus had a good game last week, but could see how that form carries over for this round, especially against a better defense than Miami. So that's a pretty good first game. They're 8:30 on Wednesday. They play their second game at 7:30 on Saturday against Philly, which, as we mentioned earlier, they've been scoring more, and Nashville can concede, especially on the road. That could happen. So they're not impenetrable, but that's probably a good shot for the double keeper. If you do that, you again sort of lock yourself into what your keeper-roo option would be, and that would simply be nobody. You wouldn't be able to do another, so that would be another set and forget sort of keeper. Potentially, I guess you could do something if you had Nashville or Turner and you got a clean sheet in the first game, or they didn't get it in the first game. You could switch it to one of the single game week teams who are coming up later in the round. For Nashville, that would just be they play at 8:30, and then you have Portland, Vancouver, San Jose, and Austin later. So you could still do some stuff at the beginning, but Portland has had some success. Vancouver has been scoring, so I'm not confident in a clean sheet there. San Jose might look like a good option because we've been talking about the struggles of Austin, but San Jose has also been leaky. Austin has shown the ability to be able to score, so I don't like them as your backups. The one crazy thing I've also thought of, I'm just trying to throw out options right now, is you can preview 2 scores if you go with Seattle. You can see Seattle's game against Colorado, which they had success against Colorado earlier. Maybe on the road they could do it again, but you have the Seattle at Colorado, and then on Saturday at 3:30 you have Seattle at home against Sporting Kansas City. Not the ideal second match against Sporting Kansas City, who has been doing well, scoring by consensus there, but you can preview both of those games before another single game week team starts. You'd be able to have the Red Bulls if you wanted to against Columbus Crew. That's on the road, not sure, but they had a strong showing last week. They can maybe go with Gutman again if you wanted to, but you have Red Bulls as an option, and at the very latest you could also maybe go with Real Salt Lake, who's playing against Chicago, maybe get some luck there, but it becomes kind of difficult. So this may be a round that if you're looking at a keeper-roo, it might be better to just go with the first game and then see someone who's going to play in the second game, unless you are comfortable with a single game week keeper as your first keeper, and that opens you up for some of these later options. Or if you wanted to do something crazy, you could look at Guzan, you could look at Atlanta, Atlanta is getting ready to have a 3-game home run. 1 this week and 2 next week, I believe. But they're playing against New York City, which has been New York City FC, which has been struggling some. You could try that as your first double game week option, as a single game week keeper, see what happens, and then you have a lot of options. You could go with Atlanta and then go with the Red Bulls and see if you get some of that. If lightning strikes twice, you could go with Atlanta. You could go with a Portland or a San Jose or someone else. So any of those other options I mentioned. But Atlanta is a very viable single game week keeper option, I think, for this round. Wow, that was a lot longer than I thought I would talk about goalkeepers, but I really wanted to sort of dive into some of the various options. As far as defenders goes, I think you guys mentioned it. Andrade right there with Seattle. I don't know, I'm looking at that, but rotations, Ashley, as you can speak to better than I think any of us, is always an issue with Seattle, and that's always a big question mark there. If you do want to go with someone from New England, think they're going to have some success on the road, you have your options. I think Jones is maybe the highest scoring one, but you could easily look at somebody else. Zimmerman, Debasi over with Minnesota. Like I said, I think they're still a very viable defensive option. I have some good attacking options there. And then check out with Columbus if Lightning is going to strike twice and see what happens. Maybe Mensah, maybe one of those other defensive options there. They've not been in the lineup for a while. Could be a good differential in a head-to-head if you're playing for one of those playoff spots. So yeah, a few different little names to throw around there. Looking over at chat, a lot of people looking at Orlando as a potential differential. I think they have a guy on red, don't they?
I don't believe so.
No. See, that's
Some of the defenders that you would pull from them, I believe, are applicable. If that makes sense. Like, Ruan, Johnson.
Yeah, Carlos. No, I thought Carlos might have been on a red card, but I think some of that stuff wasn't updated when I was looking at it before. But yeah, Carlos is another good option right there if you are looking at it.
Ruan as well in the wing is a good call. I mean, they are 2 home games, but they're Montreal and New England, so
yeah.
I would love to throw Trusty or Estevez out in there as well for Colorado. We skipped me, but I let it happen.
I did?
It's okay. I always pause because you always do the transition, but then sometimes I pause too long and you think I already went, and that's fine.
I'm doing other stuff here.
I know you are. That's why I never say anything. But that's the only players that I'm really looking at that you guys hadn't said is Colorado, and some of that is the Seattle of it all. I don't like to root against the team I love, but I will if it gives me fantasy points. So I think that if you're looking at Colorado, those are the 2 players that I like the most. And then I also was tinkering with Ruan. Considering that, I think it might be a little bold, but I think it's a good shout.
A very Spencer pick.
So Spencer, he definitely had them.
All right, well, let's talk about midfielders and just take it, Ashley.
Yeah, I'm just gonna do all of them. I'm gonna say them all.
Say them all, and then you can't be wrong.
I think, would we all agree that Mukhtar was probably the first person we put on our team? Yes.
Yes.
I like him this week, no matter what. I'm also considering Lucho Acosta, and before you talk me out of it, I just like that matchup. I don't like Cincinnati. He's burned me, they've burned me. It's never a safe bet. But I like them at home against Chicago, and then I like them going to Miami. So the matchups are what appeal to me. Lucho Acosta doesn't considerably appeal to me, if that makes sense. Like, I worry about him, but I like the matchup. So I'm not fully locked in on him, but when looking at it, that jumped out to me. I think I'll keep Joao Paulo this week. You're not getting anybody else back in the midfield to make him play worse. And to get a 9, I think that's just fine. I think he has a bigger ceiling than that. He tends to perform well at home. He always plays better when Christian Roldan is next to him, and Christian Roldan will be back from international duty. I think he's a player worth having. I don't know how I feel about Carlos Gil. I'm considering baiting him with the matchups, but the minute you do that, he'll turn into the heel of old. So for me, for my money, I think Gil is more of a bench play for me this week, just in case. But I'm not quite at the point where I feel comfortable just like taking him off my team. And then I'm going back and forth between Frag and Ray, and I know that Blayne will have more to say about this, but To me, I feel like Fragapane kind of just point chasing. I feel like when we've really talked about Minnesota as a whole through most of the season, when both have been healthy, Reynoso is still the more dynamic player who produces more extra additional points. I don't know with his recent form of just a few games that I think he's the better pickup, but I also don't feel super confident in Frag because he's been in and out and in and out and in and out. So that one I'm really kind of going back and forth with, but I do feel like it's important to have one of them. I would never go both. And then I hate to even say it, I am considering Michael Barrios, but I would never tell Reid that, so Reid pretends that I didn't hear that.
You're welcome to tell me. I just can't do it.
I know.
Can't.
It's more of a bench play for me too. And you know, we only have so many bench spots, but I'm considering it.
Blayne.
Yeah. I actually don't have Mukhtar in my current draft of this. I've toyed with it. Yeah, I've toyed with it. I've got Heel in there.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of have those two fighting for a spot. It's just the way I feel about the week and the way it's going. I'm kind of back on the Columbus train right now. Santos being back, Reid hinted at it earlier. Santos being back has really changed the dynamic of this attack going forward. Having him in is helpful to the team as a whole. Zardes back and healthy has been good. So I'm torn. I want to see the lineups between Zella and Santos for Columbus, but I think one of them is getting the spot. Team Fragapane all the way. There's numbers to back this up. They've both played the last 5 games they have played. Ray has a 3, a 6, a 2, a 7, and a 15. That 15 stands out really well. But in that same time, in those same 5 games, Frag has got a 9, a 6, a 4, a 10, and a 13. So the 15 was offset by a 13. Everything else has been 2, 3, 4 points higher across the board.
You got to do that same look with Pedro Santos, though, because Pedro Santos hasn't gotten more than 3 points in a game, and he's played plenty full 90s. He hasn't gotten more than 3 points since round 15.
Oh, no. Oh. Yeah, no.
I'm just going back to that for you. I feel like that's a trap.
Yeah. It feels like point chasing, yes. I have his numbers up, too.
Yeah.
And outside of this last week where he got a 17, he got a 0 in 83 minutes. But that includes a penalty miss and a yellow card, so he picked up the minutes played plus a bonus point.
Yeah.
And then the Montreal game in 90, he got another 3.
Yeah.
So I don't know that he is the play, but him being back with the team is really changing the dynamic going forward.
He never went anywhere, though, Blayne. He missed 2 games because he was hurt. He's been there the whole season, and they've been moving him around everywhere.
I thought he had been hurt a lot more. He was hurt earlier in the season, I thought.
Yeah, no, he's only been hurt. He came in as a sub, and then he missed 1 game. They've just been moving him, right? Caleb Porter's been in different roles. So
weird. I must have just been missing him altogether. Yeah.
I just don't want you to point straight. I'm just.
But the bigger thing is Zardes is back and healthy.
Oh yeah.
And so yeah, so I'm for that one. I've got Zella in there right now. I kind of want to see what Santos can do and where he lines up, but I've got it on Zella in there now. The Fragapane versus Ray numbers, they speak for themselves. He's outscoring him by 2 or 3 points every game that they've played together, except for the one, and he still got a 13 when he didn't get the highest score, which is astounding to me. It's just, I don't know. People are going to keep watching Ray because he passes the eye test, but Fragapane just keeps getting the points. We're talking scoring actions versus facilitator. And the scoring actions are all lining up one way on this. It's just hard to break away from that and say we're going to go with somebody else. So, and then I've got Mihailovic in there. I know it's double away, but I like it. I like the way he's playing. I think these are solid matchups where he can get some points. I don't think Orlando's defense is that good. And then Toronto's defense is absolutely terrible, and that's a rivalry game, and I know we're always cautious on rivalry games, But given the way those teams are playing and how bad those defenses are, I'm expecting that to be one of those 4-3 shootouts that they've had before. I want to see it. And it was pointed out to me on Facebook this week that Mihailovic passed Piatti's single-season assist record this last weekend.
He's like, what, 14?
Yeah, he broke Piatti's single-season assist record for Montreal. So you got a kid that's in form like that, playing well. I'm just going to ride with him. Every time I've taken him this year, he's had a solid score. I think the double game week is worth it. And then my bench spot is Pico for Houston. I think Houston's going to find a way to score some goals again. He's been involved a lot lately, not as much this last week, so I'm hoping he comes back around on this one. But I really like the way he's playing, and I really like the double LA matchups here. Houston playing against both LA defenses is probably a very good thing for fantasy points, and so I'm going to try to bank on that one.
Houston goes to Austin.
Or no, it's Austin. Sorry, yeah, it's one LA. Somebody else has got the double LA.
Mm-hmm.
I think. Yeah.
I asked
But
myself.
yeah,
Oh, sorry.
Even Austin's a defense I would bet against right now too. So.
As for myself, Mukhtar. I also have JP, but are you not worried about rotations, Ashley?
They really want first, so I'm not as worried about rotations as I have been in week past. But yeah, I mean, Seattle is a team that tends to rotate, but I don't know if they can afford to rotate as much as they have before. That's very lineup dependent for me. I mean, what time is that game? You would definitely want to back up. I have one in mind, but for that first game,
it's 9 o'clock.
Yeah, so I mean, you can really only pull from, when you see lineups, you could really only pull from. You could still do any of those. What looks to me to be a 5 o'clock game. So sorry, what's that? 8 o'clock. When lineups come out, you could pull someone from one of those games, the 5:30 games, Houston, LA, Nashville, Columbus. You'd still have time to slot in before those games started, but I mean, yeah, there's a chance you could kind of.
For Seattle, I mean, Seattle plays at 9 Eastern, so what, 6 Pacific, and you're not going to be able to preview that full game before more teams are locked. So you would.
My point is just lineups. If you.
Oh sure. Sure.
He's not going to not start at home. So if he's starting in the Colorado game, then you'd be fine. But if he's not starting, you could still pull from Houston, LA, Nashville, or Columbus before
if we get the lineup an hour before.
They tend to.
You guys are pretty good. No, you guys are pretty good.
They're pretty good.
Not like you're Miami with their animated ones.
If Sporting had won yesterday, I would say they probably wouldn't rotate him out. Mm-hmm. But I honestly see him sitting the first game, just with the history Seattle's had with him this season. Mm-hmm. He sits the first game almost every time, unless they're coming off of a long break. Seattle's, 5 points clear? And the weekend game is Sporting. Like, you're going to rest him and go full speed into Sporting, because if you win that weekend game, regardless of what happens, you're pretty much locking up first place at this point. Right. It's going to take a big falter. I don't see Schmetzer running him out midweek and risking tired legs. I think he wants to hit that Sporting game at full speed with everybody 100% rested. And I see rotation. That's why I wouldn't even consider him. The game's too late. If they were one of the first games, playing on the East Coast to start with, whatever, yeah, maybe, but not playing that late in the week. I don't think you have a good enough fallback for him.
I would just be surprised to see them run the kids out in Colorado. We'll see. I agree with everything you said. I also just am not super confident that he gets rotated. Of all the people that would or will get rotated.
Yeah, turf and altitude in Colorado, though.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe they're not turf, but still,
they're not turf. They are altitude.
That altitude, though. Ugh.
Christian, missed time because he was with the national team. He didn't play, so I could see them doing Atencio and Christian instead of Christian and JP. But I just don't know. The Schmetzer's whole tone is very much that they want that first round bye. So we'll see how reflective that is in his lineup. I think JP on your radar, Reid, is good, but a backup is smart.
Yeah. No, I mean, Fafa would be a good backup if you're looking at Houston, not as consistent, but he has had some moments of brilliance right there. I mean, this is where you could have a Columbus. Yeah, I mean, this is where you could have some Columbus play come in if you aren't already going to be having one of those guys. You still have some time there. And then you could even look at those later games if you weren't looking at Gould, another guy who I have on my list that could be someone you potentially go with. I mean, you could even go the other way. If you don't like JP, if he's gone, you could go with the Colorado player. That's when you could look at He Who Shall Not Be Named or Price or somebody like that. So you do have options to go. I like, we talked about it already. I think you covered it well. The Minnesota options, one of those guys, Fragapane right now. So I have Fragapane as well for that option. If you go with Columbus, I think Zella is the better play. Like you were saying, just the consistency of Pedro Santos. Some of that has been, though, he's just been all over the place, filling in where needed, which is a great credit to him, but is usually going to be Zelarayan. Though with Zardes back, that was some of the bump Zella was getting when he was playing that more forward position, being like that false nine or straight up being a striker or whatever. He was getting some of those better shots. So Zardes does take a little bit away from that. And then I will give a shout out to Gene, who is completely betting against his New York City. Yeah, there's no reason you can't look at Atlanta again for a midfield option right here. New York City has been struggling on defense as well. So yeah, Gene.
Sure.
I think I like the double game week guys a little bit better than Atlanta. On the goalkeeper, it's almost sure.
It's a whole other thing.
Yeah, it's almost like sure, go ahead. I'm going with a goalkeeper who may have 2 games, which does give me a little bit better of a shot at a clean sheet, but some of the clean sheet chances just look so little anyway. The single game week guy's about as good of a play as others. Midfield, I don't know. I think he got some good options. Mihailovic, I definitely have him. He was one of my ads pretty early on, just based on his form. And I think of away games, he's got 2 decent ones, and I also think Gault has good decent ones for away with Vancouver. I mean, I think against Portland has opportunity, and I think against San Jose also has opportunities. I mean, that's a Cascadia game for Portland, so there's good potential, I think, for Gould to have a good showing on the road. So totally. See any other mentions? Oh, and I guess I'll weigh in as well. I am not going with Heel. I think this is kind of a dangerous game. I saw a good conversation on Discord where they were talking about with Heel playing with Buchanan and having Bo on the field eats a lot into his production, and with that being the dynamic now that we're seeing post-Heel injury, it has been reflected in fantasy points. So I don't think it would be a bad play to fade Heel this week. You could potentially have him being a switcheroo, but I don't know. I think you could fade Heel and it'd be okay, which is kind of a scary thing to say sometimes.
Yeah. Right.
Let's move on to forwards, and to make up for my previous wrong, Ashley, start us out again for forwards.
I mean, I'll take it. I like Chicho from LAFC. I really go back and forth about him, but I like him this week. I like their matchups this week. I like the form he's in. I like Pepe. I don't know, guys. I've just been really on that Pepe train. Maybe it's the FC Dallas social media persuading me and how much they hype him, but Dallas needs it. So I'm kind of inclined to pay attention to him, and then, I know Blayne will say it, and I don't even want to steal from him, but obviously Giassi, player of the week. He's like Blayne said, he's getting healthy. He's back in form. I think that he is a great pickup. I think there's a lot of strikers that you could make a case for this week. I feel like, Mora or Nisgoda, I think are good shouts. I'm not going to do it, but I wouldn't judge someone who would pick Brian White back up. I think that, there's some decent forward options outside of what I just said for sure. DK, Quintero maybe, but those are the players that jumped out to me. I don't feel comfortable in Rui Diaz's injury status enough to pick him up for a double. I would if he was healthy, though, with these matchups. So those are the three I'm running with right now. I kind of feel like Christian, where I have 3 right now, but I have a list of like 9. So
Blayne.
Yeah, this week's weird because a lot of the guys that you would initially think of are injured, potentially not starting games, getting some rotation, got some weird stuff going on. But not Zardes. Zardes, first player added to my team this week. Had to do it. The only forward I'm actually going to start. My other 2 are on the bench. A name I expected Ashley to say that I'm going to go back with is I like Tati this week.
I like him right now. You know I love him.
I know, and I just Atlanta's defense is a little streaky, and that's her road game. But I like that home matchup against DC. I don't know. Gambler's fallacy. I think he's due. I think the double game week is a good chance to get him back on the score sheet. And I just, like I said, I don't like a lot of these options. Rui Diaz is a rotation risk if he's even healthy enough to play the second game. You're looking at first place in the West without him right now. Bruin is playing really well, so why rush him back if he's hurt? Like there's a ton of stuff going on, lots of question marks. Pepe flirted with my team a little bit, but then if you didn't see, he put in a formal request for transfer today.
Ooh, they're not gonna not play him though. You think?
Depends on
Yeah.
if it depends on what, I don't know what countries can still make moves. Wolfsburg had apparently put an offer in for him. I don't know if they can still pick up players.
Yeah, I think Ajax is one too.
I don't know that it's going to make him not play. I don't think Dallas would hold him out unless he requested to be held out to stay healthy. But now he's got all that going through his head too, plus national team hype, plus all of this. O'Brien's been playing well. Ferreira has been playing well. There's not that they need to rotate, not that they should rotate, but there is a potential for 2 other guys to really step up. So it's kind of a scoring by committee type of thing. It seems like somebody gets a brace, but it's never the same guy twice. And so I'm a little hesitant there. I think I'm point chasing with the Rongo on the bench. It's 2 road games, but I don't see why that's a bad shout to make at this point.
Last time he had 2 road games and we were like, he's done really well, but can he do it on the road? He scored a goal in both those games. He didn't do anything crazy, but he produced. So
yeah, and that's what I'm looking at his road form, and he's got 2 goals on the road, and that was that double game week.
They're both PKs, but they were still goals. They could point
and
out
when you're taking PKs, that's huge, and he earns a lot of PKs too. So it's kind of I don't like this week for forwards. I really don't. It's so bad. If they were in any better form, I thought about Higuain.
So bad. Don't do it, Blayne.
Yeah, it's horrible, but that's how bad this week is, and it's because Toronto's defense is garbage, and FC Cincinnati is better than Toronto on defense, but I don't know how much.
I mean, let's not go crazy here.
Like if you were to tell me that we would have a team that's playing twice at home against Toronto and FC Cincinnati, and we're not taking their starting forward, I'd say you're crazy. And this is the one opportunity we might actually not take a starting forward against that lineup of games.
Good conversation. Look forward to the switcheroo section. For me, I was looking at Pepe as an option. I did not know about the transfer request. Definitely want to keep an eye on. Gola Kamara, as Ari would say. I think that's a name to look at this week at home to New England. Not the best game, but it is a road game, and for New England. So you never know what could happen with DC. Ola does get opportunities. And then that second game, maybe the one I like better against New York City. I know you're talking about Tati maybe at home against DC. DC against New York, I guess is what I'm just going to counter right there. That I think could be a game that Ola has opportunities in as well. Maybe not the best option going forward. Other than that, I think you've mentioned some of the backups I was looking at. Zardes, potentially Bo as a switcheroo on the road. You never know. There could be some opportunities there. And this may be a better for a switcheroo option, but Quintero could be a decent backup for Houston. Like I said, I am wary of targeting the teams who are playing against Austin this week. But Quintero has a good history. They had some success last week. Austin has struggled, so that could be an interesting switcheroo option right there. Otherwise, you guys have covered, I think, some good ones. It would be a nice story for Miami to get a good win against Cincinnati with Higuain after their coach was fined for his comments against referees. But kind of, I don't know. I guess we'll just round it all out. If in honor of Gene, you could also look at J Mart. I guess if you wanted to go with a single game week player,
yeah.
right there. We'll just do the romp through the Atlanta roster for potential options right there. Let's see here. Looking over at chat real quick. Don't see any options. Well, let's hit up the switcheroo then. And Ashley, I see you're still typing. So Blayne.
Yeah, Higuain was one of my switcheroos for the week. If you want to do something crazy, I don't think he's going to end the season without scoring at least 1 or 2 more goals. Home versus Toronto and FC Cincinnati are definitely opportunities to score those couple of goals. Watch it be 1 in each game and him not be worth taking this week. But I don't know. I feel like we got to talk about him, or he's going to go off and nobody's going to have him, and then we're all going to be kicking ourselves. So this just makes me feel better when I don't take him. I've tried to jinx him as best I can. Ashley, did you hear mine the other day? I said his name like 4 times in a row and then said, okay, we're good. Now he won't score.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, we got to talk about him or he's going to score.
Yep.
And then the other one I like, Reid, you talked about him, is Quintero for Houston. I think the matchup is good. His last 3 are 15 and 8 and a 5 going backwards. So a little bit of point chasing coming off of a 15, but that 8 sandwiched in the middle there and playing against good ones. My worry on this one is rotation for him. I don't know that he starts both games. Thankfully, the first game is at home, and you will be able to see that one to make a switch. He might be the closest one to displacing Arango on my team. If I see LA line up in a way that I think is beneficial and Houston comes out full strength, maybe I switch to him there and drop Arango. I don't know. I'm looking at Houston to try to blow up. I am trying to make up some ground in the overall rankings. I'm not in Champions League, so I'm looking to play some stuff, try a few different things, and see if I can't find a better way to start snagging multiple scoring actions instead of the guys like Arango. I think he's good for a goal a game. He's a safe pick, but I want to try to do better than just the safe picks right now. And so I don't know. Quintero's the other one, and I'm really flirting with putting him in there over Arango right now.
Ashley.
Yeah, I have more, so bear with me. The consistency of Sotelo starting is what concerns me. I feel the same about him as I do about Lucha, where I think the matchups are interesting for fantasy, but I don't trust the team enough to pick him. I think for me, Fafa is kind of a switcheroo option. I don't love his consistency or Houston's consistency enough to make him an all-out pick for me. And then because of rotation, I'm also going to throw out Kellen Rowe and Josh Atencio. Kellen Rowe put up like 14 points in the first game of the double for Seattle last week and then got rotated. He came in, but in a kind of a different position. And Josh Atencio doesn't score goals, but he picks up pretty consistent bonus points. And if Joao Paulo is out for that first game, I think he's an interesting option for the Seattle midfield. I also think players like Chofis for San Jose, who's on a double and playing not fantastic teams at home, and then DK as well, who is playing 2 home games. I think you could throw Nani into the DK conversation as well. Those are some players that I don't feel like I have to have, but I kind of feel like, well, should I consider them? If that makes sense. Not so much Kellen Rowe and Atencio. I think those are kind of out there. Those are people that Spencer will probably pick up and like captain. But Chofis, DK Nani, I think are some kind of interesting differentials that I'm toying with in my switcheroo spots.
I am just basically looking at Houston and Atlanta guys as switcheroos. I know I mentioned some of them during the main section, but for me, they're really sort of the switcheroo options. One being a single game week team, and just the other little unsure about. But I think Houston has some potential. Might be point chasing, but some potential with some success of the last few weeks. So those are two that I would add. Otherwise, you guys have some good ones. And finally, I think we've all kind of avoided it because we're not really sure, but who is going to be your captain, potentially, for round 25? Blayne.
The smart play tells me it's Fragapane, go with the midfielder. I think he's probably got the most upside, double home, all of that. Picking up the bonus points pretty consistently, getting on the scoring sheet more often than not. But my gut says just this is the week to go Zardes. Just go all out. And
you haven't done it all year, Blayne.
I know I haven't done it all year. He's been hurt and out of form, and national team is just. I don't know that I'm going to get a better week to do it. I like it. I think I have to, especially with that Red Bull game on the back end.
Yeah.
But my gut says, or my head says Fragapane. But my gut wants to go with Zardes so bad.
Contractually obligated. That's the situation you're looking at.
Yeah, you're
Ashley.
running out of weeks, so choose it.
Yeah. And my team is named after him this year, so
yeah, has to. Yeah. Ashley.
I'm leaning towards Mukhtar. I know what his points look like the past 3 weeks. I'm not ignoring it. But I'm that's just where I'm leaning. I saw people talk about Chicho last week, and he produced well. I'm not going to captain a player who has 2 road games. That's why I won't captain Carlos Heel. But I'm not as sold on Frager, right? They didn't pay off for anybody last week. So right now I'm leaning towards Mukhtar, but also not sold.
For me, I'm looking at 2 players, either Mukhtar or Fragapane. One of those 2 players. A midfielder, I guess is where I'm going after. So probably one of those.
Forwards.
No, not even thinking about a forward.
Subtitle of this podcast.
I'm not. So I'm hard anti-captain defenders. You all should play the Powerball. To the multiple people who messaged me about captaining Guzman. Awesome. I'm so happy you did that. You should have played the Powerball. That's what you should have done. But so I'm hard no for captaining anybody in the defensive unit. I prefer midfielders because of the wider range of point potential that they have, and I'm just so scared to captain forward is really what it comes down to. But Ashley, if your dog was a forward, I would captain your dog.
I know. Snuck in. So stealthily. You know what his name is, right?
No.
Wando.
Fantastic. Yes, captain.
So
ACW.
He's a forward. He's a striker.
ACW. There we go. Your dog. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for listening with us tonight. Again, games are starting on Wednesday, so be sure to get your lineups set and pick your captain. We'll have more information coming out throughout the week on MLSFantasyBoss.com. But before I go too far ahead, Blayne, do you have anything to mention as plugs?
I tweeted it out for him, but if you guys haven't checked him out, the MLSDG podcast is always fun. They started up this year. Spencer and Avery have been on the show at different times. They had me come out last week to talk U.S. soccer after the last round of qualifying. So that was a good time. I think we did about 40 minutes on U.S. soccer, which was a blast. And yeah, if you haven't checked out their podcast, it's a lot of fun. Just covers all things MLS. A little bit different take on that. And now Spencer is working with Kyle Beckerman, so he's getting the inside scoop on some stuff. So you get some of that, and they're getting a few more fun guests lined up on their show. So I always appreciate getting to go on the show and talk with them. And if you guys haven't seen it, go check them out.
Ashley.
I got nothing, guys. I'm so disconnected from all of the Disneyland. I haven't even been on Discord. nothing to plug except for Lily and Wando.
There we go. And AFC Richmond.
And it won't, honestly.
That's me, like I said.
I would.
Head over to.
Are we allowed to do that?
You can do that. I don't care. Yeah. Head over to MLSFantasyBoss.com to check out the articles that we have coming out with, of course, this podcast and the ELO rankings and the Discord player poll. Head over to Discord to participate in said player poll and get all the latest news through the pinned articles and updates that we have, especially the player injuries, call-ups, red cards, all that good stuff. Head over to become a part of that community. It's super simple. You go to MLSFantasyBoss.com/Discord. And finally, to Ron, you're very welcome for the Patreon swag that has gone out. I only got 2 things back in the mail, but I'll try to reach out to people to see about that. So if you have your Patreon swag, share it on Twitter. I love seeing that. I try to retweet that and like it. Super appreciate everything you all have done to contribute to this podcast. If you would like to learn how to contribute to this podcast, head over to patreon.com. That's patreon.com/MLSFI. And you can learn more about how to become a member of this Patreon community as well. So thank you so much again, everyone, for listening to us tonight. I hope the quality was much better for everyone. And as always, good luck.